Hello and welcome to some brand new gameplay from Alien Isolation. Now, you'll remember when the game was first announced, we made a huge fuss about how this was not a first-person shooter, it was a first-person hider. Well, surprise, there are guns in the game, and a flamethrower. But before you start rocking back and forth, muttering a gypsy curse on Randy Pitchford's eternal soul, you're not actually going to want to use those weapons. You see, guns make noise, and noise attracts the space bastard alien, which is why you'll want to be very careful about squeezing the trigger. And that flamethrower? Well, it drinks fuel like we drink to forget aliens, colonial marines. At this point, I should point out that this is not me playing the game. Sega's provided us with this footage with someone a little more gung-ho behind the controls.
Apollo and the Working Joe working together for a safer, better connected Sevastopol.
For example, in this scene with a creepy broken Ken doll synthetic, I chose to hide from him, craft an EMP grenade, bean him on the head with it, and then, while he was incapacitated, smash him in the skull with a wrench until he slumped to the floor, gurgling unnervingly.
That was a response. This isn't the answer.
Or you could, do that. Also works. As was rumoured before E3, there are other humans on Sevastopol's station, and they're bricking it just as much as you are. Try and approach them and they'll likely pull a weapon on you, and if you make too much noise, the alien will pile in as well, and this thing's not picky about who it eats. It's the kind of thing that developers describe as emergent and systemic. I prefer words like cray-mazing. That's a word, right? Cray-mazing? Actually, perhaps it is better to let the developers explain. Here's creative lead Al Hope.
Because everything's running under the same kind of core AI, you get some really amazing, unpredictable, emergent gameplay. Where so one of the devices we're showing today is the noisemaker, and it's got this crazy device with two speakers on either end. And if you throw it, it starts to emit this weird sound, which obviously attracts attention. But how that plays out and what it actually attracts, and the kind of the events that come out of that. Are kind of totally unpredictable, and you're never quite sure that whether or not you're going to have this kind of small victory, you're going to have the kind of success.
Don't get the wrong idea though, all this stuff is only going to distract the alien for a brief amount of time. You can't just torch it with a flamethrower and waltz through the rest of the area singing show tunes at the top of your voice. And even worse, it'll learn your tricks as the game goes on, so that noisemaker will become less effective the second time.
In terms of the say for example the devices, they're quite effective, but then the alien kind of adapts its behavior, and it starts to understand that it's kind of being toyed with, and so it stops reacting, and so that it requires the player to change plan again and try and use something else.
So you're saying if you use a noisemaker a few times, it will start to realise that actually there's someone nearby that, but it's not necessarily where the noise is coming from.
Yeah, so absolutely, it kind of it understands that someone is kind of effectively toying with them, and it stops reacting to it.
So even with guns, the most effective solution remains hiding. There's an extensive system of vents running underneath Sevastopol's station, but bear in mind the alien uses that exact same system of vents to get around, and if you've seen the movie, you've seen how terribly that ends.
Samuels, I've made it to the hospital.
We're at the transit station outside medical reception. Ripley, we heard gunshots, and if we heard them, so did the creature.
The bad news for your ticker is that the alien's presence is basically constant and 90% unscripted. If he's not roaming the corridors menacing you, he's clattering around in the roof space. Loud noises attract him, his routes through the station are basically unpredictable, and he can't be killed. He's basically your worst nightmare, which is why, yet again, I put down the controller with my heart genuinely thumping in my chest. Cannot wait.